Well, hey friends, it's Mike, and thanks so much for joining us here on the main track. Well, I am working on a brand new layout video update for you, but first I wanted to show you some highlights of an exciting train show I went to this weekend. Well, I just got back from another Railroad Prototype Modelers meet in St. Louis, and I tell you, each year I go to this thing, it just gets even bigger and better. And this year there were more vendors than I'd seen before, and several hundred people came out to attend the show. Well, I had a really great time catching up with a lot of old friends and also seeing a lot of you for the first time in person, so thanks to everybody who came up and said hi. Now, what makes these prototype meets so neat is the model display. Everyone's able to bring their models to show off their craftsmanship, so it's always nice to see everyone's hard work. The RPM organizers announced they had a record attendance for this year's meet, and that was certainly easy to believe when you saw how big the crowd was. Well, this year's featured in-house layout was from InScale Modutrack, and I tell you, this might be one of the most detailed InScale layouts I've ever seen at a show. A lot of the InScale modular layouts I've seen at big events like this are more focused on fun themes and scenes and not always fine details like you'd expect on some bigger HO setups. Of course, there's a time and a place for that, as it certainly appeals to a lot of modelers and families who come out to the events. Well, before I got to the RPM show on Saturday, I saw pictures people posted online the day before of the layout, and I actually thought it was HO scale. So it was a pretty neat surprise to find the trains and scenes a lot smaller than I was expecting. And I will say I enjoyed this layout just as much as some of the more true-to-life HO layouts I visited. Well, the members were operating this classy Burlington route streamliner. Well, the location they're modeling certainly isn't Missouri like my layout, but the landscaping was pretty similar with the small towns and grain elevators and rolling farmland. I walked away pretty inspired by what I saw. Now, one thing that really stood out to me with the scenery was the fantastic looking grass all over the layout. Well, I took specific note of this because I'll obviously be having a lot of prairie scenes on my layout, which depicts west central Missouri. I was also pretty impressed with the fully functioning signal system, which isn't something I've seen on a whole lot of other modular layouts. Now, I've mentioned before, part of me is a little jealous of our InScale friends because they can pack so much more into a space. Well, I always tell everyone that my not-so-great eyes and big clumsy hands are doing good enough with HO scale, and I'm not sure I'd enjoy working with a smaller size quite as much. But I can certainly enjoy and appreciate the trains and layouts others have worked so hard on. Well, I also enjoyed meeting a lot of the manufacturers who came out to this year's RPM meet. It was neat to see Scale Trains, which had several of its samples of the upcoming GP40s out on display. Well, a while back, I pre-ordered one of the Penn Central units, which I will patch up for the Kadee once that arrives. Well, there were a lot of other nice road names, and there were instances of Milwaukee Road, Chicago and Northwestern, and Rio Grande units showing up on Kadee as run-through power, so I may have to grab some of these other versions once these are released. Well, across the way, Rapido had samples of its GP38s that'll soon be released. I had ordered 3 of these Conrails to patch up for the MKT, so it was pretty neat seeing these in person ahead of time, and I'm certainly looking forward to getting these. I thought the other road names like Santa Fe and Burlington Northern were pretty sharp as well. Behind those are some of the samples of the GP40 car bodies. Well, I'm waiting for all the Kadee versions to come out, but Rapido told me it'll still be a while before we see those. Well, of course, one of the fun parts of events like this is shopping for some new trains. So it is very possible I loaded up a shopping bag with some new rolling stock from my layout. Well, I'm going to unbox those for a show and tell and update on my own layout coming soon, so you'll want to stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time, friends.